Hello! Welcome to my channel. My name is Brian, and it is finally here. The launch of the Switch 2 has arrived, and despite price hikes, tariff drama, keycard controversies, and questionable backwards compatibility, millions of people are about to get their hands on a brand new Nintendo console for the first time in almost a decade. But whether or not you are a day one Switch 2 owner, or if you are just hoping to catch one on a random store shelf someday, you may be wondering, what else do you need to buy to actually use the thing? I understand that people will not be able to buy every single game and accessory all at once, so I figured it could be helpful to talk about the must-haves, the stuff that I do think you really do need to buy day one to get the most out of the system. So today, I want to give a bit of a buyer's guide, my personal recommendations as to what is and isn't necessary to have alongside your Switch 2 the minute you unbox it. Now, of course, as of filming this video, the Switch 2 has yet to actually launch. I don't have it here with me, and hopefully we get some surprise announcements on launch day, and who knows, maybe a new operating system or a surprise same-day game drop. Wouldn't that be nice? Any of you watching in the future, you know that either I should be very excited or I am about to be underwhelmed. So we'll see. But for now, let's take a more broad strokes approach, of course with some specific recommendations based on not only the new stuff that's been announced thus far, but also what I found essential from my Switch 1. Outside of the console itself, the sky's the limit with what you can spend on games, accessories, subscriptions, storage, skins, merch, amiibo, everything. But while the ecosystem of additional products may be unlimited, and the options within each category will expand endlessly, there are, without a doubt, a handful of must-have purchases as well as some highly recommended considerations. And something to keep in mind when it comes to my recommendations to wait on any purchases, including the console itself. While we used to be able to count on a potential price drop for the base model of a gaming system somewhere in the middle of its life cycle, Microsoft's recent increase for all Xbox Series consoles shows us just how different times have become. So while waiting may allow you to save up some extra cash, there is the genuine possibility that in the age of tariffs and increasing inflation, any product has the potential to go up in price over time. All we can do is make the decisions with the information we have right now and the prices that we know today. So with that out of the way, let's start with the console itself. This one is easy. At launch, there's just one version of the Switch 2 itself. No secondary colorways, no limited editions, just one Switch 2. But there are two options for purchase. You've got the base system alone, or the bundle that includes not only the same base system, but also Mario Kart World. The base system is $450, the Mario Kart bundle is $500. As I mentioned in my launch games breakdown, go check out that video if you haven't already, there is really just the one first-party exclusive launch game, and that's Mario Kart World. To me, if you're going to go through with a purchase of the system at launch, Mario Kart World is an absolute necessity. Otherwise, why are you doing this? Why are you buying it day one if you're not gonna play Mario Kart World? You gotta get Mario Kart World. That's the kind of the whole point. Your options to buy the game are either to get the bundle, which in the US at least, means the game will be included as a download code only, no physical game card. To get the physical game, you'd have to buy the console and the games separately. While buying separately is the only way to get the physical cartridge here in the US, it will mean that you pay the full $80 price of the game. If you buy the bundle, you may miss out on a physical game cartridge, but you'll save $30. Me personally, I say save the $30, get the bundle if you can. But if they're all sold out, you may spend the extra money, but at least you have a physical copy, so you know that $30 can be a bit of a wash. This alone could be enough for many of you. Just get the Switch 2 bundle with Mario Kart World and you or your kids will be good to go, at least for a little while. $500 or $530 if you buy them separately, and you've got yourself a brand new console and their flagship game. The console comes with everything you need to play it, in handheld and on the TV, and is even ready for 2 players, at least in Mario Kart World and a handful of other games that support using a single Joy-Con for each player. If you already own a Switch 1 and have a library of games, even better. Your Switch 2 should play most, if not all, the games you already own, though of course there are some exceptions. Check out my video on trading in your Switch 1 for a deeper dive into that. But more importantly, most of your accessories will work with the Switch 2. So if you have a Pro controller or any other third-party controller or even the Switch 1 Joy-Cons, you are good to go with full-scale multiplayer where everyone gets a full-size controller, or you could spread it out even more by turning each Joy-Con into an individual controller. And of course your Amiibo, your eShop purchases, all kinds of stuff transfers right over. But some things don't transfer over and other things are new and only available on the Switch 2. And I'm sure some of you out there are buying your first Nintendo console and don't have the luxury of a full Switch 1 library of games and accessories. And to you I say, welcome! Welcome to the Switch community. You have so much to look forward to from everything released over the last 8 years and all that is to come. But when it comes to additional purchases, there are 2 right off the bat that I'd recommend whether you're coming from the Switch 1 or not. The first is Nintendo Switch Online. This is Nintendo's version of PlayStation Online or Xbox Live. It's the paid subscription that allows you to play games online, whether with your friends or in online lobbies. For the basic subscription, it's only $20 per year, a fraction of the price of some of the competitors. And with the base subscription, you actually get a handful of included perks. First, of course, is online play, as I said, either with friends or strangers through the internet, which also includes the new game chat feature, which allows you to chat through a mic or even video if you get the additional camera. Chat wasn't included directly on the Switch 1, which was a real nuisance when playing with friends. You had to use your phone and the app. It was kind of a pain. But on the other hand, it was honestly a bit of a relief when playing alone online. No randos in chat saying whatever people on chat tend to say. Certainly nothing good. I'll have to see what kind of parental controls come with it before I can recommend the camera to any of you parents out there, but just know, on top of everything, chat only comes with Nintendo Switch Online. Aside from online play, you get access to a number of games. They're retro games, but games nevertheless. You've got the original Nintendo, the NES, Super Nintendo, and original Game Boy, essentially the early 90s kids starter pack. They also toss in unique riffs on games like Tetris 99, F-Zero 99, plus cloud saves, game trials, and missions and rewards, essentially Nintendo's version of achievements. Honestly, it's a ton of stuff for only $20 a year. And if you have multiple family members with their own Switch accounts, the family plan is even better, up to 8 accounts for only $35 a year, basically a steal. And this is, without a doubt, my #1 recommendation to any Switch owner, new or old. Without online play, you're missing out on a lot of games that are online only, and all of the multiplayer modes included in countless regular first-player games. Though remember, Nintendo does build their ecosystem with couch co-op in mind, so this isn't technically a necessity, but you'd be leaving a lot of game content on the table without it, and that's ignoring the fact that you won't be able to play with friends or family remotely. For anyone who already has it on their Switch 1, no need to change anything, it rolls right over. In fact, your game saves in the cloud will be able to migrate to your new system, though keep in mind certain games like Pokemon or Animal Crossing will not transfer via a cloud save, but there are other ways to get some of that data over to your new system. A less necessary purchase, but one I'd still highly recommend you consider, is Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack, the higher tier of their online subscription that costs more than double the standard membership, $50 annually for the individual and $80 annually for the family. But for that extra price, you get some pretty great content. First and foremost, you get the Switch 2 upgrades for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, 2 of the best games to come out on the Switch or any Nintendo console, if I'm being honest. These, to me, especially with Mario Kart World being the only first-party exclusive at launch, are a can't miss for Switch 2 owners. If you had the Switch 1 and own both, these upgrades will let you re-experience the magic of the two incredible Zelda games in stunning 4K and HDR. There are some additional elements, specifically through a phone app, but for me, a 4K upgrade is enough to get me to replay them. In fact, I've held off on playing them because I assumed the Switch 2 would come with some graphics upgrades, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to play them. If you don't want to pay the extra subscription price for the expansion pack just for the two upgrades, especially when you consider that you will lose access to the upgraded versions if you are ever to cancel your Nintendo Online expansion pack, you can buy them outright for $10 each. For $30 more a year, it's not worth what would be a $20 one-time purchase if that were all you were getting out of the expansion pack. But there is more great content in that expansion pack, starting with a greatly expanded retro game library, including Game Boy Advance, Sega Genesis, and Nintendo 64. To me personally, as a 90s kid, the Nintendo 64 games alone make it worthwhile. But also, any owners of Mario Kart 8 get extra tracks, Animal Crossing New Horizon owners get to play the Happy Home Paradise DLC, and Splatoon 2 owners get Octo expansion with a full single-player mode. But that's not all! For Switch 2 owners, there's even more to come with the expansion pack, specifically the brand new GameCube Online, which, yes, only includes 3 games at launch, but that includes Wind Waker, available for the first time on an official Nintendo console since the Wii U. More games have already been announced to come, so there's no question GameCube Online will grow more and more with time, but yes, for now, it is just the 3 games. With all that's included, I think the expansion pack is a great choice, particularly for any Switch 1 owner upgrading to the Switch 2. You probably already have Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Kart 8, Animal Crossing, Splatoon, all the things that this would expand and upgrade. For you, I say forgo the paid Zelda upgrades for now and just enjoy them as part of your online subscription. If you are new to the Switch ecosystem and the Switch 2 is your first purchase, I'd probably say hold off on the expansion pack. As hard as it is for me to say don't get the Nintendo 64 library or the new GameCube games, and don't forget about the classic Game Boy Advance games like Minish Cap, an often overlooked classic, you won't be getting half of the upgrades they offer since you don't already own the games. No, for you, I would recommend that instead of the expansion pack just yet, I'd go out and buy the full Switch 2 version of Breath of the Wild. It's $70, which is the same as buying the $60 Switch 1 version plus the $10 upgrade. It's just all in one package. You can get it digitally or you can get it in a physical copy. By starting with Breath of the Wild Day 1, you'll have essentially the same experience we all did back when we got the Switch 1 at launch. Breath of the Wild was the big first-party game on launch day, and I'll tell you, it alone was enough to warrant getting a Switch. It was incredible. For you or your kids, Mario Kart World plus Breath of the Wild and the full base Nintendo Switch online library of retro games will be more than enough to get you through the first month at least. I'd say you're probably good all the way to July 17th when Donkey Kong Bonanza comes out. But in case it isn't enough, you can always buy Tears of the Kingdom to get you through. But if you're asking me, I'd say stretch out the experience of the 2 greatest Zelda games as much as possible. It's not a race. Really savor them one at a time. I'd actually say the next original Switch games to look into would be Mario Odyssey, especially since it has a free Switch 2 update, or Smash Bros. Ultimate. Like Mario Kart, it is an absolutely flawless series, and Ultimate is as phenomenal today as it was at launch. Plus, it's a completely different game style to Breath of the Wild or Mario Kart, so it makes it an essential for any collection. And who knows when the next Smash Brothers is coming out, he says, knowing that you could be watching it from the future when you already know when the next Smash Brothers is coming out, and I'm super jealous of you because you are so lucky. I can't wait to play it on my system! Another unique playstyle, Animal Crossing New Horizons. I cannot tell you how much that game helped with getting through the pandemic lockdowns, and I personally can't wait to try it on hardware that won't drop frames every time I walk through my field of flowers. An added bonus, it is a non-violent, cozy game that's good for all ages and playstyles. Like Lego, it's universally beloved and perfect for the whole family, an easy win and a recommendation to anyone. I'd probably hold off on Mario Kart 8 for now until you've gotten your fill of Mario Kart World. The best thing about Mario Kart 8 is all of the expanded tracks and the expansion pack. So go ahead, keep that in your back pocket until you feel the need to get the expansion pack. Stick to the new stuff for now. There are so many other amazing games from the Switch 1 library that I could be listing recommendations all day. It's really up to you where you go from there. Maybe there's a series you or your kids want to try, maybe a sequel is coming up like Metroid Prime 4 and you want to go back and play through the series, or perhaps there's some Switch 2 upgrades like those coming to Mario Party Jamboree that will make it a tempting purchase for anyone who doesn't already own it. It's also a great example of how you can tailor your game library to your own use case. Have a big family or want to spend a lot of time playing with friends? Get the party games. Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, Mario Party. If you prefer playing solo, get the Zeldas, Mario Odyssey, the different Pokemon, Metroid Dread. Pick a category that speaks to you, look at the top-rated games, and just dive in. Same goes for all the other ports, upgrades, and exclusives that are dropping for the Switch 2. I know a ton of people are excited for Cyberpunk 2077, Bravely Default, Street Fighter, and so many others. The ports you should buy for yourself or your kids depends entirely on the genres you prefer and the games you haven't played yet on another platform, or you just want to have in your hands. One thing to remember though, many of these games are certainly going to have stability issues at launch, as in they could crash or graphics won't load right, it could be anything. And it's just going to take time for the Switch 2 to prove what it can handle and what it can't. The more you wait it out after a new game has launched, the more stable it will be, the more you'll know about its performance on the Switch 2 itself, and the better the experience you'll have. Some games you may genuinely have to wait years for, and trust me, it'll be worth it. It's better to play a stable game in a year than an unstable, annoying mess today. In general, I say leave the day one headaches to those of us reviewing them. Hold off until they've worked out all of the kinks. Other than games, it's the accessories you'll be looking to buy next. Well, actually, there's one technical purchase I wouldn't necessarily call an accessory that I know most people will be buying immediately, especially looking at how many are sold out, and that is storage in the form of an SD card. This is a memory card to expand the number of games you can download onto the system and have readily available to play. For every Switch 1 owner, in case somehow you didn't know, the micro SD card that you use in your Switch to expand the original 32 gigabytes of storage will not work on the Switch 2. I know this has been talked about. I know that this is all over the internet, and yet I still see confusion, especially from parents buying a Switch 2 for their kids, which is totally understandable. Naming conventions for these SD cards is dumb. They're just dumb. They're too close to each other. The Switch 2 uses a new form of micro SD called Micro SD Express, not to be confused with the previously available Micro SD Extreme. These are not the same. Since they announced that the Switch 2 will require the new Express cards, they have been sold out left and right. And with the way online shopping works, pretty much any online store is going to say, oh, the one you want is sold out? Why don't you buy one of these completely different things? That is a trap. Only Micro SD Express will work. Don't buy one of the old ones. Typically, I would never recommend that you buy the Nintendo branded SD cards, the ones that are red or yellow, has Mario or the 1-up on it or whatever. Nothing wrong with them, they just typically cost more than a similarly sized generic one from any reputable SD card manufacturer. In this particular case, if you are at all uncertain about which of the micro SD cards will work for you or your child's Switch 2, just stick to the one that says Switch 2 right on the top. It's got Mario, it says Switch 2, you can know for sure that this is the right one. And I know for a lot of you, it will be sold out. Do not be tempted to scroll down and buy one of these other ones that are in stock. Those will not work unless they say Express. But as stressful as I make it sound, you don't have to fret over it, because despite what a lot of people online are saying, you don't actually need it day one. The Switch 2 has a much larger internal storage drive, 256 gigabytes versus the original Switch's 32 gigabytes. Yes, the games are bigger, so as more and more Switch 2 games and ports are released, that 256 gigabytes, which probably is more like 200 gigabytes after you factor in the operating system and some buffer to not stress the hard drive, so it could even be a little less than that, we'll have to see. But even then, if you say the average game at launch is 20-ish gigabytes, I know there are bigger ones, but let's just say between the indies and the AAA, the average size is 20-ish, that's still more than 10 games you can store on the system. Though the second you throw on a big port, that number will definitely go down, so conservatively, between a couple first-party games, a port or two, and some indie games, you are really only looking at maybe 5 to 8 games stored on the system itself. Anyone who has dealt with the internal storage of a PlayStation or an Xbox know that a single Call of Duty could fill up the bulk of your storage. So while it does benefit from Switch 1 and thus far Switch 2 games being on average relatively small in terms of file size, you'll still eventually be doing the download, delete, download, shuffle with your games until you buy an expansion card. And if you don't have access to high-speed internet, or if you have data caps, that can be more than a nuisance that can stop you from accessing your games. So I understand why you would want the SD card expansion as quickly as possible. And yes, this does mean that if you had a terabyte of every digital purchase sitting on your Switch 1, ready to swap to any game at random instantly, this will be less convenient and potentially devastating if you have internet connection issues.
Hey, this is Editing Brian from the future. I did want to point out that if you don't have a strong internet connection, you should probably stick to the physical game cartridges. But when you do, make sure you're avoiding any game key cards. Games where the cartridges themselves don't have the full game, they still require a full game download. It's labeled right on the box and on the websites, but games like Bravely Default, Hitman World, Hogwarts Legacy, Street Fighter 6, Yakuza 0, all of these are game keycards and require a strong internet connection to download the entire game. Plus, you'll also have to log on the first time you start the system for the day one patch, so keep all of that in mind, that the internet is required for a lot of the Switch. And if you don't have a strong internet connection, you may have to wait for Nintendo to change their mind about that. Just want to let you know, and back to me. Bye!
But in time, not only will microSD Express cards actually be available for purchase, but they'll almost certainly eventually come down in price. They don't even have a 2 terabyte card on the market yet, and that's the max the Switch 2 will support. So there's plenty of room to grow. Wait if you can. But aside from storage, the options for accessories are endless. The primary accessory that everyone should eventually buy is a second controller, especially if you don't have any from the Switch 1. I would say hold off on getting a second set of Joy-Cons. One, they're crazy expensive, $95 for a pair. And two, if you are dying to have a second set of Joy-Cons, at least wait until they have more colors to choose from. Right now, it's just the matching set. No, if you have to buy a second controller, get yourself the cheaper Pro controller. Not only does it allow for a full second controller for 2-player mode, or even a third player if you split the Joy-Cons in half, but it's also a very different experience for a single player versus the Joy-Cons, even in their grip. I always prefer to use my Pro Controller when playing Switch 1 games on the TV. I just find it more comfortable when I'm sitting on the couch. If the $85 that the new Pro Controller is going for is too much for you, you could save $15 and buy the Switch 1 version. I can't speak to the quality of the build or the feel in hand until I have it and try it out for myself, but from a purely tech spec standpoint, you'd be missing out on the 2 customizable rear bumpers, the new chat button, the faster charging, and the enhanced rumble, whatever that means practically. Is all of that worth $15? Honestly, I'd say wait until you've seen some reviews of how it feels in the hands. As every owner of a terrible third-party controller knows, a well-built, solid-feeling controller with good tactile buttons is better than any terrible-feeling third-party controller with extra buttons. So just wait to see what people say about the new Pro Controller. I'm sure it's great. And speaking of how it feels in the hands, I would say a grip will eventually be a necessity for everyone. The thin profile of the Switch and the Switch 2 is great for portability, terrible for ergonomics. But fortunately, there is approximately 1 billion grips built for the Switch 1, none of which will work on the Switch 2, by the way. But when it comes to the style, material, grip design, modularity, dock compatibility, all of that, the options are endless and frankly come down to preference. This is another situation that I say wait. Wait for grips to even be released, let alone be reviewed and recommended. If you know you need a grip for your own hand or wrist issues, I'd say get a cheap one for now, invest later once the market has been filled with options. A screen protector, however, I'd say go for now. I like to keep my screens extra safe from scratches, and with tempered glass, there's even a bit of shock absorption, which is always nice. Any cheap one will do, but definitely stick to tempered glass over plastic. Cases are another eventual must-have, and yet again, there are so many variations. It's up to your personal use case. And once again, if you need one now, get the cheapest one. More options are certainly coming, so hold off on premium spending until there are more premium options to choose from. That is, unless you know you'll want to lug around every element of the Switch 2 and dock and cable and everything, at which point go for that big, beefy, full system carrier that Nintendo is dropping day one that will carry your Switch 2, your accessories, games, docks, cables, chargers, everything. Speaking of the dock, cables, and charger, all of those will come in the box with the Switch 2. There is no need to get a second dock unless you absolutely have to have a second TV or monitor setup to hot swap your system at any given moment. I say that knowing that I'm certainly tempted. I'll be streaming gameplay here at my desk on Twitch, recording for videos and whatnot, so follow me on Twitch to watch me play live. But also, it would be great to be able to plop down on the living room couch and play it on the TV without having to unplug the whole thing and set it up on the other TV. But outside of that, just go with what came with it for now, especially if you are tempted by any third-party docks, cables, or power supplies. The Switch 1 famously did not play well with third-party chargers and docks. Many people found that out the hard way, bricking their Switch entirely. With the Switch 2's higher dock performance, there's actually a fan built in for some sort of dock cooling solution. So I don't know how third-party docks are going to deal with that. I say wait until experts have tested and approved any third-party charger or dock before you plug your system into it. Cables we'll have to see as well, but you'll probably end up being fine with whatever high-speed USB-C cables you have on hand. You'll just want to make sure it's a high data transfer, high power transfer rating. Not all are built for 60 watt and above or high data speeds. Once again, if you are unsure what that means, just stick with what's in the box for now. For HDMI cables, this one you can swap out at your leisure. There is a high-speed cable included in the box, but you will likely need a longer one. When you do so, don't just use an old one that's been kicking around for 20 years. Make sure you use one that is high-speed, capable of at least 4K 60, or even if the box says 8K on it, you'll know you're good to go. Some other accessories they're advertising, you've got the charging grip or the Joy-Con wheel 2-pack for Mario Kart. The wheels, who knows? I had them back on my Wii. I used them a few times and that was it. Granted, the Wiimote wasn't as sophisticated as the Joy-Con, so maybe I'd use them more now. I don't know, but they feel more like something that would end up sitting on the shelf untouched after the first time using them. But for you, they could be very fun, especially if you have little kids. The charging grip, I just don't think it's worth it. The Joy-Cons, I'm sure, will have plenty of battery for a single play session. I doubt you'll find yourself needing to recharge them mid-match. And at $40, it's a hard sell when if you just save a little more money, you can buy a Pro controller and then you have two separate controllers. There's also some charging docks, so I'll have to see what people recommend for those because they're third party. I like to have my controllers on a charging dock for my different systems. It's just very convenient. But if you're just going to have the Joy-Cons, they'll charge right on the system as long as it's plugged in, or actually in handheld, it'll charge them back up. So you don't need a charging dock, but I find those to be a nice to have. Oh, there's also the $65 GameCube controller for GameCube Online. I'd only recommend that if you are for sure getting Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack. Even in that case, I don't know if I'd tell you to rush out and buy it, other than the fact that it may not be available for long. Assuming it even is available again, since you can only buy it through Nintendo directly and it's sold out. As of this moment, they can only confirm it works for the 3 games with GameCube Online. Though, they did say it should work with a number of other games, but none they would confirm outright. So, buyer beware. And finally, there's the biggest accessory that Nintendo has been lining up with the Switch 2 as a key feature, and that is the camera. I for sure think you should hold off until people have had their hands on the camera and given their thoughts. I'll be checking it out and making a video on it so you can see if it is right for you. I think there are so many potential downsides to having a camera attached to your Switch 2 that it'll have to be something truly special to convince me to recommend it to folks. Otherwise, it's just a Xbox Connect. Especially as a $55 add-on. Use that cash elsewhere for now. Leave that to us to be the guinea pigs. But that's about it. That's everything as it stands now as I record this days before the launch. I've got paid links down in the description below to products I've discussed in this video. If you're looking to buy any, please consider buying through my links. This isn't a sponsored video, but if you use my links, I may get a commission, which would help me out a ton as I grow my channel here on YouTube. Otherwise, make sure you are subscribed so you catch all of my Switch 2 videos, tech breakdowns, tutorials, and everything else to come. Starting from launch day, there are a million things I want to try with the Switch 2 and tell you about. So definitely make sure you've subscribed and consider following me on Instagram to be alerted whenever I drop a new video, and check out my Twitch channel where I'll be streaming gameplay as new releases come out. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, please give it a like. Let me know in the comments if there are any new accessories I missed, or if you have any favorite games or accessories from the Switch 1 era that you highly recommend people check out. If you are still here, thank you so much for sticking around. That'll do it for this one. Until next time, peace.